5. It's Thursday, November 20th. The planning committee. Oh, what the hell?
This one meeting.
Oh my God, these guys are killing me. I clicked on the wrong one. All right, forget it. See, that's why you read out top on the top. Zoning and land is today at 3. That's why I was here at 2 o'clock today. I was on the wrong meeting the whole time. Call to order. Roll call.
Blake Ellefson,
Here.
Gary Eater,
Here.
Pat Kinney,
Here.
Jim Schultz. And do we have Paul Wilharm? Paul Wilharm online? Okay.
All right, we're gonna make it open to public comments online and in person. I don't see anyone. We'll make it again. Is there any public comments online? Last call. Public comments. Hearing none, we'll move right along to the approval of our agenda, number 3.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Gary.
Gary makes a motion.
Pat will second.
Pat seconds.
Could I ask for an amendment to the agenda?
Absolutely.
Could we add an item in the land description section titled approval of appraised values for sale properties?
So in section 6, we'll do it after the release on C. We'll put it as D.
Could we put it after the update on the land sales?
Sure. So
Okay.
we'll do it as C then and move that next one to D. Okay.
Thank you.
Pat?
I've got a question, Dan, in your judgment, if we're adding an item now in terms of open meeting laws, but I don't think we can add an item that we see as a standalone item. But when I look at that agenda, 6A, property subject to tax deed, in my opinion, at least, what you're asking would fall within that. Would you think that's reasonable to say it falls within that?
Yeah, I think Pat's correct that we can't just add an item to an agenda. It has to be 24 hours before. But, and even an emergency basis is 6 hours. But I agree, property subject to tax deed would cover that.
Okay, so we're not going to need an amendment to this. We're going to keep it as is. We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor, approval of the agenda? Aye. Those opposed? Okay. So we'll keep it as is. We'll talk about that in the section A. 4, approval of minutes. A, approval of zoning and land meeting minutes from October 29, 2025.
This is Pat. I'll make a motion to approve.
Pat makes a motion.
Gary, a second.
Gary's got a second. All right, so we got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Okay, so we're through that. Up to number 5, zoning discussion action items. Permits issued under A, revenue account, October 2025.
Okay, so we just have the month of October to report. 14 permits were issued for $7,475. And that's about it.
Can you just maybe give me a highlight of what the Bad River is doing? 911 or 911 rep?
So bad, I don't know if Brittany, you want to chime in, but they had sent in 10 911 address replacement applications to replace their signs. And Brittany, you may be able to go more into detail.
Yeah, can you guys hear me?
Sure can.
Okay, cool. So they had an emergency call where it was unclear which driveway went to the structure they were trying to get at. Because as of right now, in the unofficial city of Odena, they have what is called building mount signs instead of like the rest of the county's fire number signs where they're out at the end of the driveway. So the tribe decided to go ahead and purchase for tribal buildings, all of the signs were at the driveway, so it's more contiguous, so emergency responders can get to places faster. So this is just their first, they were gonna send 10 on this round, and then I think they're gonna continue the rest of their buildings.
So do we feel like the $50 charge is sufficient for the cost associated with this?
I believe so because in this instance, Matt is not actually going out there and replacing these signs. We contact the tribe, they pick them up and they put them in themselves. So I think it's efficient.
Thank you.
Blake? We have a fee schedule on all of these things, including that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So maybe in zoning, if we wanted to, at some point, we could review the fee schedule if that's of interest.
You know, I know we have looked at fees a little bit. So I think annually, I, we go over certain things in our budget, and I don't know if it makes sense for us to just kind of get a sense that you guys look at these kind of annually and internally. I imagine from county to county, are we pretty in line with Bayfield County on a lot of this stuff?
Bayfield County charges by by the price, don't they?
When it comes to the 911, I'm not sure.
Not 911, just basic permits in general,
So what they do for dwellings
Square
is they go by square footage,
square foot.
where we have a standard.
The last time I checked Bayfield County's addressing pricing, we were significantly higher. I think they were at $60 for a new address assignment and sign, and we're at $250, I think is the amount. But that might have been 4 years ago that I checked with Bayfield County. So I
So I
don't
think-
know if they have a replacement sign fee.
So here's an idea for what Pat's saying is possibly in January this year we would be able to come back and do a review of our fee cycle or a fee schedule when we have a little bit. I think January tends to be a little slow time. Maybe identify if there's some gaps, like what you just said. We don't want to be out of market certain things, but our new construction's pretty low. So we just have to make sure we're making enough in fees, but
When was that last updated? I think there's a date at the bottom.
I believe it was 2023, and before that, it was 2018.
Yeah, so for staff, is January okay for doing some homework and having recommendations?
Sure.
Yeah,
And if you have any recommendations you would like to bring forward, please let us know. I did pull up Bayfield County's fee schedule. So that's what you see here on the screen. And then I also have Ashland County's on the other page if you'd like to see it.
I think we've hit the agenda item, but we'll, in January, look at fee schedules then. Mhm.
yeah, I think that makes sense. Okay. Thank you. All right, then we will move along to number 6, land description, discussion action items. Number A.
All right. So attached in your packet was an updated list of our properties subject to tax deed. I have no recommendations for foreclosure at this time. Are there any questions on the list? Okay. Then in the same subject, I'll go on to I guess this is kind of after the tax deed, but our foreclosure sale list. I tried to get these numbers in with the packet when it was sent out, but Tony sent them all last night. So I just created a quick list and passed it out of some new prices that are to be approved. They are these top 7 where the prices are in bold and italic. These are the suggested listing prices that Tony's come up with for those properties. So if I could have a motion to approve those so we can get them listed.
This is Gary, I'll make a motion to approve the prices.
This is Jim, I'll second.
We'll take a few minutes to look at these though.
Okay.
Are you just looking at the top 7 or so, 8?
Yeah, the top 7.
And now the 7 below it are approved for sale, right? And
Yeah, these ones we approved at our last meeting. It's just the ones on the top that I need approval for right now. And I can go into more detail on those other ones on the next agenda item. I'll go into that in a minute.
okay, let's not get
One
ahead of
first thing at a
ourselves.
time.
That's the meat of it. Yeah, no. Oh. Uh,
Jennifer, do any of these have buildings on them? I'm trying to,
Yeah, the ones that have an address in bold have buildings.
okay.
So there's 3 of them in this top section. There's 3 in the bottom section, but we're just worrying about the top section for right now.
So when you talked to Tony about this and looked at the prices he recommended and the assessed values and just kind of the reality of the market, do these seem reasonable to you?
I didn't really compare them to the assessed value. I just went off of what Tony said for market value, especially because the 2 can be very different.
so when we think about how much the county has into, because there's that takings law, right? That if we sell above and beyond what we have against it in back taxes, our time and energy, then we have to pay back to the people that we took the property from.
Yes.
So, for instance, 1201 9th Avenue West, right?
Yes.
So 44 for how much in that do we have to go back and give back to the estate or to the person we foreclosed on?
I wouldn't know offhand. I assume most of that. We would probably take out whatever the back taxes were. It was a house, so maybe it's like 5,000 or 6,000. And then whatever Tony's commission price is, which would be 6% of the 44,000. Plus any, expenses from the title search and our time and that kind of thing.
And I think for me, the real value, and I know this is hard to hear because I really do value your time and energy, but the real value is that these properties are now back into kind of 1 to 4 family home ownership kind of longer term and into non-disrepair, non-houses that become, forced into, not meth houses, but just bad things happen when no one's there and no one owns it. And then when the county gets stuck with it. And so I just want to say thank you so much for finally getting this to this point, because this is an important problem that we're stuck with, and the county gets stuck with it from the city as I learn more. And the city says, oh, county, you deal with it. You've got that mechanism. Well, thanks a lot, right? And so thank you again. These may not be worth much in the sale price, which is not the important part. The important part is that they're not in our ownership. And I just, so thank you again for getting it to this point.
Sure.
So in commission, you said on this one, 44,400, Tony, 6%. I think he's got a 3% minimum commission, so it'd have to be 50,000 or more to get above 3,000 in commission. So on one like this, and then he also, I didn't think about this earlier, but you know, if he's got to co-broke this because another realtor gets involved. So on one like this, in terms of what we can legally compensate a realtor for their work, if his standard fee, you know, for property like this is either 6% or a minimum of 3,000, he could be compensated that 3,000, correct?
Yeah.
And we're still in the positive as far as where the county comes out.
Yeah.
So if there's a lot that's $4,000 for sale and he gets 3,000.
He's not getting 3,000 on here for the, maybe we should talk about, you know, a little bit in terms of, we're setting prices in part, we want the county to be made whole at the end of this. But these properties where the values are such that there's not enough left on the table for Tony to get the 3,000 without the county going in the hole. He's willing to do it for a minimum of 1,000. Which also might mean he's still co-broking on some of these, so he ends up with less than that. But if there's enough there that he can get that full 3,000, then we can compensate him to 3,000.
Yeah, I know earlier, several meetings ago when we talked about going with Tony, we did say 6% or $1,000 minimum commission. So he's aware of that, even though that's lower than what he usually would take.
His normal minimum commission, if I'm not mistaken, is 3,000. And so I want to ask the question, on a property like this, where there's enough to make the county whole, if he gets his 3,000 minimum commission, are we agreeable to doing that? And I'm bearing in mind that he's the only one that submitted an RFP to do this. And then again, at the time, I didn't think about co-broking, which leaves him even less for all that time and effort. And so if the law allows us to give him his normal minimum commission of 3,000, where there's money on the table to do that, I would prefer to do that, because he's been agreeable to sell properties for less than 3,000 because there isn't money left after the sale of some of these smaller parcels. And I think it's important, if we want a realtor to work with, we've got to make sure that we maintain that relationship. And if there's money on the table that we can legally include in our costs, be agreeable to compensating him. Otherwise, we risk losing the only realtor we have. And, you know, the money would otherwise just go back to an owner that walked away from it anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we're okay with, and I
Mhm.
am certainly, because
Can we,
what he would charge.
we possibly update the agreement to say, you know, to kind of include what you said, if there's a sale price that supports a 3,000 minimum, he would get that, but
I personally think, because we haven't seen this, at least as a committee, in writing, I think it's important that now that you and Dan and Tony have had a time to talk and get the process started, and a lot of times you go, oh, I didn't think of this or that, like I didn't think of the co-broking factor. He does all the work and somebody else says, hey, I got a buyer, give me, 40% of that $1,000 or whatever.
Yeah.
That we put this in writing, and then we, as a committee, review this, and then administration and Tony review it, so that we're all agreeable to things. Because if we're going to maintain the relationship with the one realtor we have, we want to make sure that we all are on the same page of what we've agreed to, and not end up with nobody that's willing to do this.
Yeah, I agree. I've thought of that too. I think it's within the statute that we're allowed to pay whatever the normal realty costs are. The committee did make a motion to do the 6% or 1,000, whichever is greater. So I guess if we wanted to change that, we might need a new motion to up that, just to stay consistent.
So I'll make a motion, we modify the agreement that Tony Jennings be compensated 3,000 as a minimum commission, provided the proceeds of the sale leave at least 3,000 above what the county is owed on that property. And that's what Tony has said he was agreeable to. So if there's proceeds above what the county is owed, up to 3,000, then he would accept that.
Okay.
So let's say there's 10,000 left, then he would get his 3%. But if there's only, say, 2,500 left above what the county is owed, that's, he would accept that, but 1,000 was the minimum regardless, just so we get them off our books.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just make sure it says the 6% or 3,000 on the listing contracts that he sends.
Because so far, if he gets that one house sold, we're in a much better place than tearing it down. So, all right,
Okay,
thank you.
yes, thank you. So,
So
Mr. Chairman,
there was a,
there was a motion on there's a motion on the table.
the motion was to update the Realtor agreement.
Right, so now we need a
So we
second.
need a second of that.
Jim, I'll second it.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
can I ask a clarifying question? Do you want it to go for all future contract, listing contracts that I sign with him? Or should I, because I don't know that we can go back and amend the ones that have already have offers and everything.
I would prefer that we make this apply to everything. Because I don't think he thought of this issue either when he got started.
Okay, even the ones that already have the listing contracts and offers purchase?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, if there's proceeds 3,000 and above, then it's either compensate the Realtor who's working for us or with us, or give it back. We might as well make it so he gets his minimum commission that he would normally get. And this really just, in my mind, at least for me, it fell through the cracks when we were talking initially, because he agreed to 1,000 on some of these that aren't worth much, and there wasn't much, if anything, left on the table for the county. And then ones that are worth more, where there would be obviously something over 3,000 in commission, he would get his normal 6%. But what we're talking about here is that gap in the middle where there's something left on the table above 1,000 and perhaps up to 3,000, but he's not going to get the full 6,000 or the full 6%. So he's willing to work for 1% less than 6%, provided the money's on the table.
Okay, I will have to ask him if we can amend those listing contracts without too much hassle.
If it's to compensate a Realtor, they'll find a way.
I'm sure he'll find, I'm sure he'll be able to.
Well, we had a motion and a second. And then we made, so I think, are we okay with, do you understand? I guess. Okay. So,
Are you okay with still your second? Given the changes Pat made? Okay.
okay, so we've got a motion, and a second. All those in favor of amending that, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. Motion passes. So that was update on our land sales.
So that was the amending the 6% or 3,000. I still need a motion to approve the listing prices on the list.
This is Pat. I'll make a motion to approve the listing prices.
Gary, a second.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Good job. Get them all sold. Just kidding. All right, so now we're moving on to 6C.
6B.
Oh, sorry.
Updates on land sales. So, yeah, this was where I was gonna talk about those ones we had already approved the listing prices for. I just wanted to give you an update. Of those 7 we approved listing prices for during the last meeting, they were all listed on the MLS and the county website. So far we've signed and accepted offers for 5 of those 7 properties, including 607 18th Avenue West and 2123 Main Street East. There's also an offer that came in that we accepted on the Clam Lake property, which is 60987 South Day Acres Road. Another update, in order to help sell some of the properties, on the ones that we can, and it's in statute that allows us to do this, to do title insurance. We'll include title insurance for those properties that, title companies are, willing to insure, which are any properties taken before 2023. There's a statute of limitations where the former owner could come back and sue the county within 3 years of the tax deeds. That's why they won't insure anything sooner. On those properties they won't insure, we're still ordering title reports for the benefit of the buyer, and we can also take that out of the proceeds as well. So at least the buyer can see if there's anything out there. They're just not getting the title insurance, but, you know. Let's see. And then our closings, Tony's arranged for the closings to be done through with Max Lindsay, for those that don't have title insurance. So that's all I have to update for the properties we're selling. Any questions?
So title insurance, I didn't think about that issue prior to you bringing it up. But when I think about that, I now think about, you've got this list of properties, none of which you're recommending we take yet. But the fact that we're going to provide some expense to title insurance would suggest that when we tally up what we think we're owed, you're going to have to factor in whatever expense we have related to title insurance so that we don't sit on these things longer than otherwise and not recover what we're owed.
Right, yeah, and part of the reason I don't recommend to foreclose on anything, there's very few properties we can foreclose on yet. The other reason is I kind of want to get through this pile that we've had for a while because of the statute change. We are on a time limit once we take the property, so I'd rather just get these taken care of, and then once those are finished, work on them a few at a time. So.
Yeah, and the rest, if we list in the spring, that's the time to sell anyway, so.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Good job on land sales. Can't wait to see the next one, even more sold. Now moving to number C, or letter C, Copper Falls.
Okay. So Dan might have more background on this than I do, but there is a parcel owned by Friends of Copper Falls State Park, which is near Copper Falls State Park. If I can actually have you go to the map on this. No, it's in there yet. You might have to rotate it, but if that's even possible. Okay, well, anyway, on the screen there, oh, perfect. The orange, highlighted orange is this 40-acre parcel that Friends of Copper Falls State Park owns. Apparently they're applying for a grant, and the county owns mineral rights on the property, and whoever they're getting the grant through wants us to release the mineral rights.
So the county board voted on this earlier this spring to support the grant. I think it was in the spring. And it's a stewardship fund grant. So the state is requiring that the mineral rights be released to give them the stewardship grant. Since the parcel is within Copper Falls, only the state would be getting the mineral rights, and we wouldn't have to worry about somebody actually mining. So I would recommend that we go ahead and grant it.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Miss Gary, I'll second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'm happy to see them acquire the mineral rights. When you own land, it's nice to have the mineral rights, no question, about that. And given where that's located, there's a lot of interest in maintaining it as is, so.
Why did the Ashland County get the mineral rights, I guess, from a historical standpoint? That's just part of the way that they did.
Yeah, so this is typical, especially many years ago, where when the county would foreclose on a property, once we would sell it, we would reserve the mineral rights on the property. So that's what happened. This was foreclosed on in the 60s. It was sold in 1966, and we reserved the mineral rights.
Okay. Well, we've got a motion and a second to approve the release of the mineral rights to Ashland County on this property. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes.
Yeah, you might see this one again on the county board. I'm not sure if it needs to go, so I will be asking Max that question.
I believe the last time we released mineral rights, it did go in front of the county board.
Okay, well, we're moving on then to 7 land records.
We can't hear you, Brittany.
Brittany, you're muted.
Thank you. So for my previous address applications, I have just presented them in front of you guys. So we have had probably about 3 or 4 private road named people interested in creating one in the last 4 years. So maybe one a year, I would say, is a good estimate. But there's a lot of tracking that needs to happen with it. So created the application just to give us a good basis of information, because it does go through zoning department, highway department, and the GIS department. So there's a lot of back and forth, and the paper trail is nice when we're all communicating together. So if you guys don't see any issues with this, then if you approve it, then I'll get it put on the official county website. And when we do the fee schedule in January, I can work with Carisha and we'll make sure it gets added to that. Does anybody have any questions?
This is Pat. You know, I mean, historically, a lot of roads are named after families there, and I can understand not, you know, having family names on these. But as you go up and down roads, especially if you're not necessarily familiar with the area, if I see a road that says, you know, Pumpkin Alley or something, the fact that there's a sign there, to me at least, would suggest this is a public road. But then we also have fire numbers, and, you know, in databases for emergency purposes, we are using fire numbers, you know, I believe in the rural areas, as opposed to names of roads. And private roads are also, there's no state road aids associated with those. So it seems like almost a confusing thing, because if I see let's say it's a nice fall day and the leaves are turning, and I go for a drive down towards Marengo or High Bridge or whatever, and I see a road sign, I would think I could drive on that road. I mean, what about that issue? Does it create confusion?
So I would say most of our towns currently already have about 4 or 5 private private driveways that are named. And really, it's when we're assigning addresses, we're not doing it for people to get mail. We are doing it for emergency response. So this, we only ask that someone create a name for their private driveway if there are 4 or more addresses off of that drive, because when you start stacking up all of the fire number signs at the end of the driveway, it gets really confusing for first responders. And so I think they prefer this. For a while, the county went with summary signs, where it gave a range of addresses. But that was not preferred by responders. It was very confusing for them. It wasn't as quick on their feet for them. So I think this is kind of a preferred route for our drivers that respond to emergencies.
But
As
Brittany,
far as
I'm-
keeping people off of them, you know, they're welcome to put up like no trespassing signs or whatever.
So on a road with multiple fire numbers, my understanding is the lowest fire number is the first house that you would come to. The second lowest would be the second house you come to, et cetera. Is that correct?
It really depends on how the road is ranged. So essentially you range it like a ruler. And so for our county, the south western corner is going to be our smallest numbers. And then as you come up to the bay, it goes up in range. So
Well,
now
let me
when sometimes, sorry to interrupt you, sometimes a road, it all depends on if it lays east or west, or north or south on how the road is ranged.
Maybe I didn't phrase that the way I intended. So let's say there's this private road, and I'm
Mhm.
guessing it's a dead end road if it's a private road. The first fire number of the fire numbers stacked is the number that's the smallest. That goes to the first house you would encounter. The second lowest fire number would go to the second house encountered, the third lowest to the
Mm.
next house. So that way the
So
responders can determine which one they're going to out of the stack.
So if the private drive goes north off a road, the first road would be the lowest, or the first residence would be the lowest address on that private drive. If the road goes, like let's just say off 77, if it turns south off of 77, the first residence would be the highest number on the road.
Well, it's not what Bayfield County did at our place, but well, it's not consistent with what Bayfield County did, and we're doing joint dispatch, but a private road are those all necessarily dead end roads?
I believe just off the top of my head, the few that we have, the existing ones, yes, I would say they're all dead end roads.
So just to throw another question out there is we are at the airport adding pins or parcels to the hangars through a survey that was done. And now they're wanting to have roads in there because these hangars are going to have, um, and it's really for emergency services. Does something where it's on the edge or in city, do they work with you and coordinate through that? Or is that because it's in city, they're not working with you?
So that is in the city, and currently the city of Ashland is their own addressing authority. I do coordinate very closely with Stephen in the cities. I don't think they call it their zoning department, but essentially it's their zoning department.
Planning and zoning.
And I have been, oh, planning, yep. I've been contacted. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's reached out and I provided a couple maps to help you guys, or to help them assign those addresses.
Pat's got another question.
Yeah, I'm thinking about where I grew up. Some of the roads that were public roads and therefore got state aids. And some of them, the grader would go down once a year, sometimes at best. So now the thought I have is for some of these roads, I don't know how long some of them are, and I don't know if they're built to a standard that the townships would accept, but for some of you guys that live in some of these areas, if those roads are built well, in fact, in the town of Kelly, I have a case of this a few years ago. The guy built a driveway that's a good got to be quarter mile long to a standard that was acceptable for the township, and now they get state aids on that. But there's not a lot of maintenance because there's just the one guy that lives down there. So if some of these roads were built to a standard that the townships could accept as a road, meaning build it to that standard, then they can get state aids for those roads, which on these low roads that aren't traveled much, and especially not much of any heavy equipment, that works out really well for the township in terms of the aids they get exceed the costs that they have. So it'd be something to consider. But then there's this factor of if that was a public road, a private road to start with, then you would need to convert it to a public road, which really probably doesn't change anything for the people there, except that the state aids would help the overall budget for the township that they are in.
Yeah, Pat, so at the very end of this private road name application is a little disclaimer that says the towns are not liable for maintaining the road or plowing the road. Because that's kind of all of the town's biggest thing is they don't want to be responsible for the maintenance of these named driveways.
Unless they get the state aids. But that's another.
Correct. If they get the state aid, they would have to go through that route of getting it
Yeah.
approved as a town road. Yeah.
Could be worth it.
Well, do we need a motion to approve this? Oh, we're dialing up name calling now, Jim. I guess you're on.
I'm not actually sure if legally you guys need to approve these or not. You have approved the 3 other ones that we have.
Well, for simplicity's sake, we're here now. Let's just approve this for use. Jim's got a motion here he's excited to make. He doesn't know.
Yeah, there's Jim. I'll make a motion. We approve the updated Ashland County private road name application.
This is Gary. I'll second it.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right. Moving right along. So we gotta look at our next meeting. Let's just throw a dart because we're talking 2026, right? Yes.
So Blake, do you want to consider doing early morning meetings so these guys don't have to drive home at night?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, there's a lot of deer on the road, yeah.
Yeah, and I know Pat, he's gotta have that nap in the afternoon, so we know. I too wake up early, Pat. Why don't you pick a date and time and we'll make it, right now I think scheduling, it's fairly open for people.
The ones I know we can't do is Tuesday, the 13th. That should be executive committee. Right, we said the second Tuesday of the month?
So then
Yeah.
the following,
So not on there, I don't pencil it in my paper calendar.
Right,
so then let's should we do the 20th? Is that okay? Since we can't do the 13th?
What time?
Well, we do it at 9, right?
yeah, you could do the 20th. I don't think there's anything on the calendar right now.
So January 20th at 9 a.m. Everybody is nodding their heads, whether they're tired or just want to think about deer hunting. I don't know. Got it in. Got it in. Okay, we're locked. I think we have just one thing left. And Pat, what do you think?
Maybe before you ask for that adjourn,
Yes.
I got a little question here as far as some direction. So we've had in just this past summer, the campground in Maringo that went up, the overhead power company just south of Ashland here on 13, Maringo Valley Sheds, the hardware lumber store there. And there's been more question about things coming up. Got people just calling and asking as far as how the land is zoned. And all of these places, it's been zoned in the unrestricted area, which in unrestricted in our unrestricted district, it says, in the unrestricted district, any land may be used for any purpose whatsoever, not in conflict with law. So I guess my question is on some of these, because people have been asking me, how do these get approved? Am I not doing this correctly, or?
Well, this item's not on the agenda, is my problem. So I guess I'll talk to you about it later, Bruce, but I don't think the
Okay.
committee can act because it's not on the agenda. They can't even take the conversation up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're back to the most important one here.
I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
All right, that's a good motion. We got a second here with Jim.
Jim will second.
Okay, all right. All those in favor? Aye. None opposed. Okay.